It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by SubashTechnosis.com. By the way, there's a link to Subash Technosis on my website, OppermanReport.com. But you go to SubashTechnosis.com if you want content writing, press releases. They can build a website for you and do the search engine optimization for you. Also, all kinds of data entry and a customer service handling for you there at SubashTechnosis.com. If you contact them, be sure to tell them, I've known Subash for 10 years, be sure to tell them that Ed Opperman from the Opperman Report sent you over there and you get your good deal. Also, check out OppermanReport.com. That's our website for the show here. And that's where we have extra content in our members section. This is extra content you won't hear on Friday nights. You won't hear it on Saturday nights. It's recorded content that you hear on demand, okay, becoming a member at OppermanReport.com. We've got some great new content up there. We just did a show about Garfield, the assassination of James Garfield, the president. And another show about, really interesting show. We had this woman on talking about the TV show, the Netflix House of Cards, and her interpretation of it and all that kind of stuff. A very interesting show it turned out to be. Now, today, we really got something going here. I've been trying to get this guy for a while, Norman Scherer. And right now, he's doing this thing called tastecoin.com. He's going to be telling us about that. But the way I found him was, it turns out this guy, Norman Scherer, was buying memorabilia, Nazi memorabilia sometimes, for Michael Jackson. And I've been trying to get him I finally started bugging him on his Facebook page, and he noticed me, and I got a hold of him today. We're just talking off the air for a couple of minutes. Very, very interesting, fascinating stuff. So, Mr. Scherer, are you there?
Oh, yes. Hey,
how are you, man? You seem like a fun guy.
You have no idea.
I think I do have a good idea. So, Mr. Scherer, tell us about yourself. Who is Norman Scherer? Sure.
Norman Scherer, yes. Born in New York City, raised out in Jersey, went to school over at Rider College. Within a few months, I ran the Film Society at Rider. So I got work-study money for, booking double features, for the next 3.5 years. I got that job during a Rider College teacher strike. The teachers were on strike after the first few months of us being in college, and so we organized a student strike to strike against the teachers, and I did a few stand-up things on an overnight vigil. I think the hanging of Doc Elliott and Stony Locks and the Three Beers and something else I probably came up with, and became Crazy Norman, and they put me in charge of the films, and I used to do stand-up comedy in front of the Rider College community for 3.5 years. I did stand-up 3 times a week, and it was crazy stuff.
And you said, too, you worked for Variety, too.
But after Rider, I got a job. Actually, because of Rider, I was working with New Line Cinema. Back then, they just had John Waters movies, and they had Pink Flamingos, which I got to show. I wanted to show it at Rider, and the dean of students wanted a description of all the movies that we were going to get. So I just wrote Disney movie on it, and tried to pass it over. But he heard from his other dean of students at other colleges that Pink Flamingos was very dirty, and Divine actually does eat shit in the movie, but It was the greatest movie I ever saw at that time, and I just had to have it. So they canceled it. I was in Florida. I hitchhiked to Florida with all my stuff in a leather boot. This guy Don's leather boot. So I had leather luggage, and I just hitchhiked down there, and we'd stay up all night or pick up girls and stay in their places. And I got arrested the last day I was there, and the cops beat the hell out of me too. I had long hair, so that was the reasoning. But when I came back to college, I got out because there was no real charges. I came back to college, and they canceled the movie on me, Pink Flamingos, and they put on the Last Picture Show instead. So I had a credit with New Line, and I went into the city. I picked up a 16-millimeter reel, and I showed it around college. I got a projector, and I showed it in the frat houses and around other dorms and stuff. So I got to show it, but it was like a long journey. But I had a great relationship with New Line. Actually, my supervisor at the school at Rider College got a job at New Line, and they were always promising me a film job as soon as I graduated. So I graduated. I went down to New Line. It was on Broadway and 14th Street. I went up there to get my job, and my job was not film. It was like selling lecturers to college, and they had the worst lecturers imaginable. So I said, let me think about it. And I walked down the street, and I got a job at Unique Clothing Warehouse, which is like 25 blocks down, maybe less. And I met, Jean-Michel Basquiat and Klaus Nomi, and it was just an amazing experience to me. And I'm still living off of the postcards that Jean-Michel Basquiat gave me back in '78.
Wow.
Pretty crazy stuff. So, I was making posters for New Line. I'm not for New Line, for Unique Clothing Warehouse, and giving them out around the village to get people into the store. I would dress up in crazy clothing. Basquiat even might have written on some of my handouts, because we always went to Washington Square Park and smoked joints together. Matter of fact, I think when the cards that he gave me, about at least 20 cards, and I think they came from. I had this gold pot when I was in college. I couldn't sell pot because I was notorious. I was, crazy Norman, and the cops were all over everyone. So I hid like a pound of gold pot behind my college under this giant rock, and I would go there every few months to grab a handful. I think Jean-Michel got a handful of that for his cards, but it's now helping me out. I just sold 3 cards, and I'm going to launch Casecoin with that money. So I'm being funded by a dead artist in the graffiti movement.
Wait, Norman, hold on for a second, because you're sounding a little muffled. You were good before.
I'm sorry. The Casecoin is now being funded by a dead graffiti artist.
Hey, so how old are you?
I'm going to be 60 in November, November 5th.
Okay, yeah, because I'm from New York, too, and I grew up in Washington Square Park. I'm 53, though, so you're about 7 years older than me.
Washington Square Park was a fun place at one point.
In those days,
like Bryant Park. Ooh.
Yeah, in those days, right? But
yeah.
Have you been down there lately? What's it like now?
It's horrible. You don't even see Jamaicans anymore selling things.
Really?
It's just very, very, very scary. They got a few guitarists still there. You can always listen to music, but it's not the same kind of vibe as it used to have. And there's, cameras everywhere, and it's just, But, in the last few years, it's been relaxed. When it was, Giuliani, it was dangerous,
Oh, you mean like police cameras?
Yeah, right now it's kind of mellow everywhere in New York. They've finally calmed it down, now with the ticketing of things, it's mellower.
Well, that's good to hear. Now,
but Jean-Michel was an amazing guy, but it's funny because Jean-Michel was like the first black guy I ever met. I grew up in New Jersey, so I didn't have any black friends. So my first black friend turned out to be like Jean-Michel Basquiat, and I didn't even know he was famous until like 10 years. Probably until he was like almost dead already. A friend of mine said, "Hey, we used to work with Basquiat."
Where in Jersey did you grow up? Where'd you grow up in Jersey?
I was in East Brunswick. I was in Verona when I was a really small kid. I spent a little time in Princeton and then East Brunswick mostly. That's where I went to high school.
Well, now explain to me, because you got this thing going on, tastecoin.com. So explain to us what that is.
Tastecoin is a way for small retailers to make new revenue. Instead of getting killed by online, they can join in and work with like 5,000 online companies that will drop ship to their companies. The customers. So if they put up a product up on a wall and use it as art, and someone said, "Oh, that's great. Can I buy that?" they push a button, and that manufacturer has it sent directly to that customer. So it's no warehousing for the retailers. There's nothing for them to pay. I put the stuff in there for them to help sales. And we work with 12 distributors, food distributors. So you can go online. Instead of going to a grocery store that might have 30 types of mustard, you can go to our distributors and see 300 types of mustard. And you can find your favorite one. We do testings at restaurants and food stores. So you can come in, find out what is your favorite Dijon, or find out what is your favorite spicy brown, and you find out what really cuts the mustard. Really, you find out what's your favorite product. We're doing pretzel tests, we're doing root beer tests, and we're doing a chocolate test that has 6 different types of sampling. And we basically let customers find their favorites, and then we find a store where they can be stocked. And it's kind of a multi-level marketing thing too, where you tell that customer says, "Hey, I'm going to tell my friends to buy this product because I can't find it anywhere else." And the more their friends buy that product, the more discounted that one customer that placed it there gets discounted on his purchases. So it turns all customers into my sales force, really.
You know what? That's very cool. I moved out to the West Coast, and there's a lot of products that you can't get in the store here that you can get back in New York, like Goya products, those Spanish products, It's hard to find here. Soubrette hot dogs and soubrette onions and stuff like that. You can't get that out here. Yeah.
Yeah, what we do is we test, we find your favorite. A lot of times, this world is so corrupt. The food business is really, it's all run, I call it a food mafia in a sense. Because, you have shitty brands that have the big muscle, and they're all over the place. Now, people don't have a chance to really taste test and find the brand they really like that may not be in distribution, that what my company does, exposes them and stocks them and distributes them.
Yeah, because the products get on those shelves because these big companies, they buy space on those shelves of where they want to place them positioned. It's a racket. It's really hard for a new product to break in.
It's like vending is worse.
Right.
You try to go into a vending, you might as well just buy your own machines because you're just talking to a blank wall, a brick wall,
Yeah.
But what I'm doing is really, basically co-opting all the manufacturers together. We do circulars in the local newspapers. I take all the retailers. We co-op direct mail, and we basically put together a whole package now. The newspapers have the retailers in them, and the direct mail has the manufacturers in them. So each side gets something for free, And besides, the retailers can never advertise as a co-op in newspapers. There's a U.S. law against that.
Oh, really?
Retailers cannot do that. It's just insane. So I had to have the manufacturers do all the advertising and the circulars for the newspapers because of this stupid, crazy law.
Okay, very interesting. Hopefully it'll be the next big Facebook or Amazon.com, and you'll remember me, okay, when you get rich. Now, I want to remind you, too, adult content. We have to watch the language so we can be able to broadcast the show. Now,
I know. I'll try.
I know, yeah. Okay. Now, the thing is I found you because there was a story about you, quote, unquote, Norman Scherer was the broker who was buying and selling Nazi memorabilia for Michael Jackson. How did that come about?
Yeah. That is a game of telephone. Remember that game you played when you were a kid? You whisper into your friend's ear, and they whisper into another friend's ear, and it gets passed around into a circle.
Yeah.
And then when you listen to the last thing, you don't hear the story that originally went out, ever, That's what happened with the Michael Jackson thing. I got press from AM New York, which is like a giveaway New York paper. I did an app, and it was called History Bus. It basically took a bus line in New York, and it showed history as you rode that line. So you can actually take the line and watch the history on both sides. You can read it or you can hear it, and you can basically, enjoy history just riding a free bus and do it at your own pace. You can get out and learn more and walk the neighborhood and get back on the bus. It's just like a local. And they wrote a big, front page thing, and I talked to the reporter. I said, hey, one day we should talk about Michael Jackson. And he was like my best customer. And she's like, all right. And then she came back under disguise at the New York Post and wrote the story. They only got, like, you know, they only wrote about stuff that they wanted to write about. And then when TMZ picked it up, they changed it again. And then all these other small guys picked it up, and it got crazier and crazier. And I spent like a week, maybe a week and a half, trying to change everyone's story to fix it.
Right.
And not one person would let me do it. Not one. You know, I ended up talking to some bloggers, but no major place would ever change it, or I couldn't get access, or they would just say, we'll call you back, and they never did. But, yeah, it was Michael Jackson. He was an amazing guy. He was one-of-a-kind artist. He understood kids because the adults are so screwed up in this world, you know. He wanted purity. He just wanted simple stuff. He didn't want all the bullshit he was hearing out of all the businessmen that hounded him. You know, most artists get killed, even the Beatles, by the people around them. It's horrible. And, you know, Michael Jackson still had a few bad people around him. You know, at one point, you know, the last transaction I actually had with, you know, my intermediate guy was Scott Schaefer, and he wanted like 10% cash to keep the relationship going after a while, you know, and I don't like extortion. It was just crazy. I put cameras up all over my studio when he came, and I made him dance before I gave him the 10% in cash. I made him dance like Michael Jackson. I still have a tape of Scott Schaefer that we're dancing around, you know, crazy.
Well, how'd you meet Michael?
After that, I cut off the ties because I didn't, you know, I never met Michael. God always said, Michael said, I thought just like him. I could pick out every movie that he wanted. His return rate was really, really slow. I didn't get very many returns. You know, he wanted the entire Disney collection, obviously, on the original boxes, you know, and in good condition. He was interested in old TV shows. Anything that before he was born, he wanted to have a collection of that. Judy Garland, he liked all her stuff. One of the biggest projects I was sent on was to find every movie that had dysfunctional parents, you know, and how it affected the kids. And he liked anything on Hitler. Anything with Hitler, he wanted that. Of course, TMZ made me into a Nazi memorabilia salesperson because out of the thousands of videos he bought, you know, he bought $45,000 of videos from me. You know, some of them were Hitler ones, maybe 100 of them. Maybe I sold them, you know, anywhere from 75 to 100 different Hitler documentaries. And my take on that is the way Hitler dressed, the way they moved. Look at his art. He moved militarily. He dressed militarily. He was inspired. You know, history is an important thing. My history. I spent years researching history, and God bless Michael for researching any kind of history that would have made the world better. You know, Hitler was like the worst creature on earth, and Michael was one of the finest stars out there. You know, his love and his joy. You know, I would say most of that dysfunctional video parenting stuff, you know, he needs insight. You know, he had a charity, Heal the World. I think that a lot of that was really he was just trying to figure out, you know, what was all around him, you know. He was brought up fine, you know, compared to a lot of kids, you know. So, I don't know. It's just weird spin, you know. Even in the Post kind of spun it as soon as I told them. I was telling them all the stuff, but they just took a little segment of it and they played it up. And then when TMZ got a hold of it, it just got out of hand. You know, it made me like a Nazi memorabilia salesman, like you were, starting off talking about. That's what the average person ended up getting from it.
Yeah, right.
And I was
when I first saw that, it did say it described you as a Nazi. At first, it didn't even have your name. Okay, first of all, they're just the Nazi memorabilia salesman. And so then I did a little research. I found you, and I says, "Wait a second, this guy's Jewish, right? You're Jewish, right?"
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. It says that would be odd, you know.
Yeah. No, I have no hard-on for Hitler.
And then also, too, wait a second, because then we have common friends. What do you call it? David Peel is a mutual friend of ours on Facebook, And the other one is Lisa Griggs, who's a friend of mine from Vegas over here. And, neither one of them are Nazi fans by any means. No. Yeah, so, okay, that's good. You can clear this up.
Peele, I used to see him in Mills Tavern on Bleecker Street. Yeah. And we became friends. I worked for High Times Magazine for 7 years. I was the videographer covering the Amsterdam Cannabis Cup when it first started out.
Okay, we might have run into each other.
3 weeks in Amsterdam and just put up High Time posters everywhere, and I would get access to backstage, and I would just hang out for 7 years. It was Thanksgiving every year. It was great. Until I married a lawyer, and she wouldn't let me come anymore, have any more fun.
Well, I used to be with the Yippies back on Bleecker Street at 9 Bleecker Street over there. I actually lived.
Oh yeah,
I lived there. I
knew Aaron Kay very well. God bless his soul.
Yeah, well, he's still alive. Yeah, he's.
I know he's not looking that great though. I still get his Facebook stuff, but he's just always talking of doom these days. Yeah,
he's in the hospital. I believe when I think he just got out of the hospital. He believes he's in remission. But pray for him. I hope he does.
I used to sell ice cream at the Marijuana Day parades. The one that we used to go up Fifth Avenue backwards.
Sure.
I had an ice cream truck, and I would drive along with the parade. And I changed all the names of all the ice creams too to make it more fun.
I'm sure we ran into each other then back in those days because I was definitely a participant, and I loved ice cream. And in fact, I used to go to the parade just for the ice cream. I didn't want to participate in anything else. I only went there for the ice cream. But now,
yes.
How did you become? Who contacted you from the Michael Jackson organization to get the memorabilia?
Scott Schaefer, because like I said, I was working Video Oyster. Let me explain how that happened. I worked for a Variety newspaper. I wrote a book named Separated States of America when I was out in California. And I came back to New York, and John Lennon got shot. And I went to, 72nd Street like everyone else, and I just hung out there for a few days. Like, Yoko came down and gave me a box of smiles I still have. And I just wanted to be in New York. And I started looking for a job. When I went to college at Rider, I wrote 2 papers, one on Variety newspaper and one on High Times Magazine. I ended up working for both of them, in a sense. I walked into Variety with a press release about my friend Jack Rabin, who was on a band tour of Poland with a group called the Spaces. 2 girls that were junkies and Jack on the drums. And they were the first American band to hit Poland. So it was news, and Variety wrote it up, and they gave me a job, and I was a messenger. And after a few weeks or months of messengering, I started a real estate column in Variety. Basically, when everyone was at the press, Variety was a family-run newspaper. It ran on doers. Basically, the Sid Silverman, who ran the company, would drink a whole bottle on press day, and the paper would magically come out. And why they were all drinking in Valley Stream, Long Island, and putting the paper together in the same press that would, print Screw magazine. Actually, all the Variety execs were reading Screw under the Variety, and all the Screw magazine guys were reading Variety. It was funny. But I would do a real estate column, and it caught on like crazy. I would go to a real estate company, and I would say, look at me, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I can get a real job in advertising if you support me. I got pages and pages, front pages, back pages. I got giant pages for condos, all kinds of stuff, and I had a job in advertising, and they gave me $1 more a day. I got a $5 raise, and I got into advertising. And I took over film and video and cable, not film, video and cable and music. And I was crazy for years out in Vegas how I sold advertising, but that's another story. And
yeah, I'm in Vegas now.
Variety got... You just imagine Hunter Thompson working for Variety, going out to Vegas and schmoozing all of the VP marketing guys. That was me. I would show up, like in Amsterdam, 3 weeks in advance. I would print my magazine there. My magazine was crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. And after the first 2 issues, it was so crazy, no one would even advertise it anymore. It was insane. And at that point, I didn't need to, because had there's a company going. The company started when Variety got bought out by a tree killer named Reed from London. They're a big conglomerate tree killer. They love to just chop down trees and make newspapers and stuff, magazines out of them. And they had no idea what they were doing. So this company division, Connors, brought Variety. They brought in all these crazy people that pretty much axed everybody but me. There were a few reporters who were around, but everybody was axed. And then they gave me half a job at a sister company doing a video directory, which I did. I had to fix it up because they left out Universal Pictures. You know, it was like MCA. You never heard of them?
Sure.
They left out all the independents. So I had to fill in all the blanks, and then they wanted me to sell it, but it had no distribution. And I was like, what? All right, hold on. Give me a few copies of it. And they were really tight about giving me copies of it. So I found out from a video store owner that I could buy my directory that I was selling for $100 for $10. I'm like, really? I'll buy a few of them and I'll write them on my expense account because my expense account always worked. But they wouldn't actually give me copies of it. So I wrote down, I got 100 of them. I ended up buying them from the mafia who was working out of our warehouse. So they sorted my expenses and they're like, wow. And so basically I had to take over distribution and I was in advertising. And this is a corporate company. And I had to take over press. And so I made some moves. I told some video guys, smaller companies, that I can get you into a chain of your choice. And I would take their product, buy it, put it into a chain for a 6-month test, and then take that result, and they have a kind of relationship with that chain now.
Right.
Now, in exchange, they bought a copy of my $100 book for each one of those chain stores. So, everyone picked a chain, and in a month, I had 2,000 paid copies of my book. But the guy and head of distribution in the corporate level just hated my ass, and the press people hated my ass. And they put me in charge of development, and then for a year, they rejected everything I did. I was making tons of money, but I couldn't do anything, and I just went out partying and clubbing all night. And then my secretary would take my phone calls, and I would sleep all day in my office. That's all. I got tired of it, and I'm like, I'm just going to take one of the ideas I had and run with it. And one of them was to do a rare video directory, find out what was originally out in 1977, and compare it to what's out now in 1990. And I did, and I found thousands of amazing movies, and I shared this data with people that subscribe to my magazine. So I went to Vegas, took out a booth at the VSDA, the Video Software Dealer Association, and got there a few weeks early, got the magazine ready. I was thinking about a giveaway, because everyone had a nice giveaway. I didn't have any money. So I went out to the desert and I bought a 1/4 ton of rocks. They were nice rocks. They were smooth. They were kind of cool rocks. They were all from streams and stuff. And I had delivered to the Teamsters at the convention center. Now, the Teamsters are a particular type of animal. When I was working for Variety, to get the papers to the booth, you would always have to bribe the Teamsters.
Right.
Some 20s, some cool tchotchkes and stuff like that. I always like flashing skulls were always the best. And you give that to the head Teamster guy, and they would deliver your stuff. So I got my rocks there. I put stickers on the rocks, little protest stickers, and basically the idea was to take the protest sticker of your choice and leave it somewhere in the convention where it was appropriate. Unfortunately, Paramount had the Hunt for Red October out at new high. It was $100 for a video store to buy one tape. And so I had this one rock that said lower your prices, and hundreds of them ended up on the Paramount booth, in the Paramount booth, retailers just grabbing them. So the organization heard about it, and they got some wheelbarrows, and they came to my booth, and they took all my rocks, a 1/4 ton of rocks, away. Fortunately, Dennis Michael from CNN was there with a camera crew and caught them taking my rocks. And then went there in the VSDA and said, "Yeah, why are you taking Norman's rocks?" they got embarrassed. They gave my rocks back. You know, they were damaged. I said, you know, because of the transport. But you know, that night, my friends in London heard a 45-second, you know, take of me being thrown out of Vegas. You know, it was great press. And I think my first customer was Russ Meyer. He wanted a subscription to my magazine. And Ted Turner started calling me up and wanting videos. I sold him dozens of videos. The Letterman show, I was supplying them with all the videos, all those crazy videos that you wonder, like, why did anyone ever make this video? I specialized in that with them.
Norman,
you know, I sold a lot to the Harvey and Bob Weinstein.
Let me ask you this, Norman. What kind of films did Ted Turner want to buy from you?
Oh, well, lots of old black and white movies, you know. I think the last thing, you know, a funny thing with Ted Turner, actually, he was a good customer of mine, and I was also selling advertising in the first 2 issues of my magazine, and Turner Video wouldn't pay their bill. They owed me like $1,000 or something. I couldn't get them to pay, so I put a little note into Ted Turner's video, and like in one of his videos, and within hours I had a messenger at my door from Turner Video with a check. It was great.
Norman, let me ask you a question. The movies from the 70s, right? Especially like those movies of the week. Remember those movies? You know, everyone, they're classics, and everybody loves those movies. But they don't get... How come there isn't a channel on TV that just plays the old movie of the weeks?
It was different rights back then. Back then, you couldn't record, so the rights were really cheap. So you can do things. Once video came into play and recordable stuff, data now, it's all complicated. But one day, video and all that will go to the realm of music, where you'll be able to go to you know, you can find a lot of music out there. And eventually, technology and bandwidth will catch up where you'll see all that stuff again. It's just a matter of time, you know. The movies that I sold Ted Turner, I can't remember some of them. I know some were for Jane and some were for him. I remember the most expensive video I ever sold was The Iceman Comets. I sold it to John Frankenheimer. It was a own movie.
And which version was that?
It was on magnetic video. It was on the Playhouse video. It was like only released shortly. Kino ended up buying up the rights, and they had it for a while too. After all this, but Frankenheimer. I was pricing that at $1,800. It was a brand new, unsealed copy of it.
Because there was a great version.
And it only came out in '77.
Yeah.
And you had to buy all 13 films in the collection to get that one.
Now that was a great movie. I saw that long version. It was like 3 hours
Lee
long.
Marvin.
Yeah, Lee Marvin.
Was great.
It was like 4 or 5 hours long, right?
Yeah. It was about a bar in Grand. Yeah, right on 6th Avenue.
How come that's not repeated anywhere? How come you can't watch that movie? It was a great movie.
It's just all the rights are all screwed up. All the rights are all complicated right now.
Really?
All that stuff. Yeah.
And do you think that's by accident or by design to suppress?
No, because the big companies want to concentrate on new movies.
Okay.
And they make their money off of the old stuff, and they just say, that's it, you know. It's a different mentality. That's why so many films there was a collection of thousands and thousands of films that I could collect at that point. I was printing my own money, in a sense. I would go out, spend $6 to $10 on videos from, you know, brokers that would buy video stores when they went out of business. And they had millions of films alphabetically on their shelf, and I would just go and fill up shopping carts and ship them back to my office. And it was all gold. It was all stuff that was so rare. I still have the rarest collection of videos in the world. I stopped selling them after a certain point when, you know, everything became like, everyone became a pirate. There was really no money in it for me to keep going. But I still own, you know, hundreds of videos that were never even put on Amazon. You know, and Amazon has a complete list. I have stuff that was never even put on Amazon. It's so rare. I've got the original red boxes that Warner Brothers had on the first release when the videos were so new that they couldn't even get the rights for pictures on their boxes. from their own company.
Wow, okay, wow.
It was like the early days, the Allied artists. They had their own label. That was Charlie Chaplin's old company. Those are one of the rarest videos out there. Photomat was the first. Photomat was the first company to put out videos. And if you have Photomat videos, those things are amazing antiques. Forget the hype of the Disney stuff. You hear stories you can get $10,000 for a black box Disney tape. That's garbage. The whole Disney thing, the collectible thing with Disney was a thing that me and Mary Kincaid from Disney came up with at a convention one year. I showed her how things could be, especially their stuff, could be hugely collectible by changing the boxes, by changing this, by changing that, by adding artwork. And that hype still lives today. Now, if you have Allied videos or Photomax videos or Videotape Network was one of my favorite old labels. They had amazing stuff that you could only find on their label, old Richard Pryor stand-up stuff, old amazing comedy, and the best music, the Boomtown Rats, live, and all kinds of amazing, great stuff. But, all these people that were buying from me, the whole industry knew who I was. I never had competition. I was doing it for 15 years, and I would make up my own prices. When Amazon came to me, I was Amazon's first video salesman. They said I was going to be exclusive. They're going to be like an eBay. But they completely lied. They found me when I was doing video. BIDEO was a company that had 35,000 tapes up for auction. There was a video store out in California, Full Throttle. I bought all their tapes, took their data, I put it into my database, and we picked off an auction. And it only went up for $1 each. And I had it going for like a month. And Amazon was like betting on a tape called Amazon. And they came in to, figure out how I was doing this. I had no employees. I would just show up at Full Throttle after the auction, and for a week I would just package up tapes and, all night at a hotel and ship them off at the post office. The post office paid me out there.
Hey, so do you have a list of all these films right now that you still have in your possession?
No. I just have them in crates these days.
What are you going to do with them?
I have some of the stuff on Amazon, but only to screw Amazon. I put a bunch of stuff on Amazon, and I don't send anything out. I just kind of tempt people with the listings there, and they have to, they don't pay for anything, and they send me nasty notes and stuff. But I hate Amazon. They're my arch rival. I want to basically compete with them one day.
But so then, what do you plan to do with all this stuff that's just sitting in crates?
They are prizes for Taste Coin. I got Basquiat as a prize for Taste Coin too.
Okay.
Yeah,
for Taste Coin.
I found all the stuff I've gathered up all my life are all the prizes for Taste Coin.
Gotcha.
It's a little bit, it's a little bit insane, but if you go to the site, you'll understand what's going on.
Now you were saying too that you were making so much money from Michael Jackson that you actually moved to New Orleans to
Yeah, in the wintertime, because New York is a drag in the summer,
right?
And New Orleans was always a favorite town of mine. Now you can go to a hotel room in New Orleans and spend a long weekend there, and probably spend about $500. Say if you go to Roosevelt, or you could rent the entire house for the whole month for $500.
Oh wow!
New Orleans back in when I was living there, back in '96, was just it was cheap. It was really cheap. And I always stayed in the French Quarter, and I always got a house for like $500. It was a dream. And the best thing about New Orleans is you could rent by the month. You didn't have to take a full year. You can just rent month by month. So I would show up in January and stay all the way until the end of Jazz Fest. After Jazz Fest, I would go back to New York. So I would buy everything from Clearwater. There were 3 brokers there, and there were 2 really good brokers in Denver. And I would just drive. I would eat well and just drive back and forth, and I would just shop.
Now, you mentioned, too, the Weinstein brothers and Richard Gere. What kind of stuff were they buying?
I don't really like to talk about what people bought.
Okay.
You know, but yeah, I got to meet Richard Gere. Not many stars I actually got to meet. I got to meet Valerie Harper. She showed up one day, and I got to meet Richard Gere. But I sold to Keith Richards and Naomi Campbell and Barbara Streisand, and even Clink, Werner Klempner.
That's right.
Clank.
From the Hogan's Hero show, Clank, yeah.
Yeah. But, I met him actually when I was at Variety. I was doing a few, Vita Licata sat in front of me and she did all these stars. So I got to meet a lot of stars. And when I did specials, I got to meet, I got to actually deal with Martin Scorsese and stuff like that. It was a cool job. Actually, I was the first person to get a bootleg of Goodfellas. And I called up Marty and I basically told him, hey, your movie's not even due out for a month or two, and I got a copy already. So I turned it over to the MPAA and made sure he knew about it as well.
So we only got a couple of minutes left. What do you want to leave us with, the final words? Speechless for the first time in your life.
Final words. I don't know. It's just been a long, crazy trip, and you can read up about everything on my website, tastecoin.com. I'm living happily in Sparta with a woman I truly love, and we are. Yeah, and I'm basically I've got two of my own kids, Jake and Eve, and they're living in Brooklyn. And I've got 3 kids with Sharon. I'm helping her with her 3 kids. Next, David, Jamie, and Ashley, who's now touring Israel. And I'm just a happy guy right now. It's like the happiest time of my life, I have to say.
Okay, Norman, thank you so much, my friend. Very interesting stuff. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, man. Good to hear it. Bye.
Okay, well, there you got the story there, Norman Scherer. Okay. The story was that he was selling Nazi memorabilia to Michael Jackson, but at least we got the story straight and got the facts for you here. So let's see here. What's going on in this little Subash Technosis? The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubashTechnosis.com. You can find a link to Subash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also AwakeRadio.us. Welcome to our new sponsor.